Thanks, Rob, and thank all of you for joining us tonight. One of the beginning parts of the college process, and one of the most important in determining which schools might be a good fit for a student, would be visiting campuses. So I'm excited to talk about that tonight. For a brief introduction, my background: I used to work in college admissions for about 6 years. Then I worked as a public high school guidance counselor for 3 years, and I've been with Campus Bound for 10 years, helping students one-on-one with the college search and application process. Our organization, Campus Bound, is located in eastern Massachusetts, but we help students all over the country and the world via email, Skype, and telephone, and we help with college search, application, and financial aid as well. I think it's important to think in the beginning when you're planning college visits and figuring out where to go and what to do, you need to stop first and say, okay, why is it important to visit college campus? Sometimes it can be a pretty significant investment, certainly of time, and sometimes also a financial investment too. And it's important to understand why this is a key piece of the puzzle for many students in their college search. First of all, it's really important to experience campus visits firsthand. I think one of the best examples I can give of this is thinking about one student many years ago who thought that she wanted to attend a sort of traditional picturesque campus and was looking for a grassy, beautiful location. And yet she received some materials from a school that was pretty urban. And she looked through those materials and read through the marketing and looked at the website and thought, oh, you know what, there's a lot more trees here than I expected. Maybe I'll go check it out. Maybe that would be okay for me. And upon her visit to the school, she came back and reported back that, in fact, all those pictures had been taken of the same tree, just from different angles. And so what looked like a brochure filled with tree-lined streets and lots of greenery everywhere was in fact a very creative marketing department. So it's really important to see things firsthand. It gives you a chance to really, especially for students, a real chance to experience the campus and see really good things and see maybe some really bad things that you might not have noticed in a book or website or brochure. Visiting a college campus also helps you as a student or as a family learn more about your own preferences and your needs and what you're looking for in a college community. You visit an urban school and you visit a rural school or a large university and a small college, and inevitably a student is going to have a strong reaction one way or another. I always encourage students to visit at least one or two colleges that they don't think they're going to like. If you think you want a really big school, make sure you go and visit a small school, and that way you can be confident when you roll them out. I see students every year at the very end of the process say, oh, I hadn't thought about attending a college like this one, but I went with one of my friends and I really liked it. So if you can actually visit and help confirm or deny some of the instincts that you have at the beginning of the process, it can really help you as you go through your college search, help you be more efficient. There's a lot of intangibles in the college search, a lot of things that that are subjective, and where a student or a family will get a real feel for a school or for a student body or a personality. There's a lot of objective things that you can look up in a brochure or on a website. You can look up the student-to-faculty ratio. You can look up what majors they offer. But it's really hard to get a feel for a school by visiting a website or by reading printed materials often. So I think it can be really important when you visit. You can really get a sense of whether or not you feel a connection or a fit. You may have heard stories of students who've traveled quite a distance and then refused to even get out of the car when driving near a school. There's something to be said for that instinctive reaction that you have, that gut reaction when you visit a school. And lastly, visiting a school nowadays, it can also actually help with a student's admissions chances. So there's a term now called demonstrated interest, which at some schools, not all of them, but at some colleges or universities can play a role in a student's opportunity to be admitted to that school. So colleges have many, many more students applying than they ever used to, and they have a hard time knowing how serious those applicants are. And when they get down to the nitty-gritty of making final decisions, they want to admit students who they expect might enroll. It helps them with their numbers and their stats and their published rankings, but it's also just, it's something they're looking for, is they want students who want to be there. One of the ways that they can learn more about that is to see students who have demonstrated some kind of interest in their school, students who have visited campus, students who have had an interview, students who have a variety of other things. That can help with admissions chances. So that's an important attention to, especially at smaller schools that can play more of a role usually in schools. And it varies from school to school as to whether it makes a difference. But sometimes just simply campus, setting foot on the campus and filling out a form in the admissions office can actually improve your chances for admission. There's different times that students can visit campus. Certainly anybody who visits a campus before junior year, usually I would consider that very much an exploratory stage. That's a time to be learning about, you know, what you like and don't like in a college or university. It's a time to be thinking about, oh, I didn't realize that a college campus would have these kinds of facilities. I didn't know that a college of 3,000 students would feel this large. It's a great time to check out a large school, a small school, an urban school, a rural school, an artsy school, a sporty school. See some different kinds of places to help refine what it is that you're looking for in a college or university. Visiting colleges during junior or early senior year before applying to college, that's a time to really be gathering information about whether or not these particular schools are good fits for you. So before junior year, visiting any colleges is fine. You don't need to necessarily take formal tours, all of that. But during the key piece of your college search, junior or senior year, that's a good time to be really getting very involved in those visits, taking official tours, having information sessions, potentially interviewing if that's a smart move for you and if the schools offer it, and really trying to gain as much information as you can. And then certainly it's a common question about whether it makes sense to visit during the summer or visit during the school year. It's certainly far more convenient for students usually to visit colleges during the summer, but you really lose a lot when you find that the college students aren't on campus. There will be, most college campuses have a lot of activity happening during the summer. It's not that they're all shut down and they don't turn into ghost towns, but what you'll find is that they'll have a fifth grade basketball camp, and they'll have some sort of a dance program, and they'll have senior citizens taking writing classes, and all sorts of different populations who are not the student body. That's fine. You can still learn a lot about school during the summer. What I would simply encourage is to do some visits during the school year. When you visit a school during the school year, that is when you can really see the student body. You can get that sense of fit or connection. And even seeing several schools during the school year will help inform your opinions of the schools that you see during the summer. It might help you realize there are some questions that you really want to ask during the summer when the student body isn't there. Or it might give you a better idea of which schools to be visiting during the summer. So any visit is better than no visit. School year visits are best, but there's limited times to go. February break right now in where I'm located in Massachusetts, students are off on break, and a lot of our students are off visiting colleges, even in the snow that we're having right now. It's a good time. April break, March break, if that's when your school has a break, whatever days off, even if you just have one day, a Monday holiday, go ahead and take that day and visit some nearby schools. If you have a whole week, then go on a bigger trip. Sometimes people ask the question, of course, what if you can't visit a school before applying? What other kinds of ways can you learn about the school? What ways can you demonstrate interest? What are some other opportunities? Certainly these days there's an awful lot of online resources. I think it can be overwhelming, the amount of information that's available online, and I would recommend you sort of hone in on some trusted websites, using an organization in a location like Zinch or any other websites that you find that really work for you. Zone in on those. Don't spend your time Googling every college out there and browsing every website that comes up. I think you can easily get overwhelmed that way. So use trusted websites, use college websites, of course, although they aren't built for prospective students, so sometimes they're difficult to navigate. And use social media too. I often encourage students, this is the time to use it for good, so to speak, and poll your friends and ask them where they're looking, or if they know somebody who goes to College X who could give you some insider information about what it's really like to be there. We have a lot of information available online. It's worth using. So certainly some students will wait until after they've applied and after they've been accepted before they visit a college. If it's a school that's really far away and it's really difficult to get to for you, then that's perfectly appropriate. It is important to visit a school before enrolling. Before you decide to go, you certainly want to see it and be sure of what kind of investment you're about to make. But I think it's kind of exciting sometimes to visit a school after you've been accepted, because you can be a little more critical. You don't have to be worried about whether or not you're going to be admitted. You know that you can get excited about it, and that's okay, because this is an option for you, and there's a lot that you can see. So visiting after being accepted is fine. One thing to be wary of is if you are applying to a school that's very close to you, you should definitely visit before applying. I think that can commonly be a pet peeve of schools, that often their local students don't bother to come and visit because they say, oh yeah, I've been there before, or yeah, that's right near the ballpark where I go all the time, so I've seen that school, I know it pretty well. And really, you should be learning about this school in many other ways aside from just being familiar with the location. So having an official campus visit to schools that are close to you can sometimes be really important. What can you do when you're on campus? Most of us think about taking tours, and certainly that's a great thing to do. They're usually led by student tour guides. It gives you a sense of the student perspective. You get to see campus facilities, sometimes the residence hall, sometimes not, depending on the school. It's a great way to learn more about a school and see a fair amount of information. You see, before that on this list is the opportunity to do some kind of an informal visit. So that's what I would do, before junior year, when a student is younger, if you're just exploring a little bit, or if you just don't have time for a formal tour, to go ahead and drive around a little bit. Make sure you park the car and get out and walk to the inside of the campus. Colleges are notorious for sort of creating a loop circle of where you can drive around the campus, and usually what you'll see is the backs of all the buildings, because colleges will try to have some sort of a center or a green in the middle of campus, and that's where the fronts of their buildings are. And you drive around the back, you get to see a lot of loading docks. So make sure you park the car and get out and walk into the center of campus so you can really see what it would appear like as a student. With informal visits, you can just check out schools again, regardless of whether or not they're particularly good fits for you, but it's a good opportunity just to see some different places. Usually you can walk around on your own, depending on how strict the security is and what kind of a neighborhood it is. You walk through the center of campus, you can walk through the student center, sometimes you can even walk around the library or the dining hall, depending on the college or university. When you take a tour, sometimes you have the opportunity to sign up for an information session. An information session is usually, a 45-minute conversation, often led by an admissions officer, and very commonly they will talk about what they believe makes their school distinctive and unique, and why you should be interested in it. But they will also spend some time talking about what it is that they look for in their applicants, what they see in applications, and what's important to them. So that can be a great way to gather some information related to admissions at that particular school. Some schools will offer open houses, especially on big holidays. The Monday holidays in the fall, Columbus Day and Veterans Day, are days that are swamped with open houses at colleges and universities. Oftentimes you may find that some schools will do summer open houses, or they'll do open houses that are specific to a certain program. They might have a pre-med open house or a theater open house or something like that. Open houses are a great way to gather a lot of information, but be aware that they're usually very crowded and overwhelming in terms of the number of people who are there. So you don't often get a lot of personal attention at an open house, but usually there's a student panel discussion. There is often opportunity to talk with faculty members, certainly campus tours, and other things like that. So it can be a great way to gather a lot of information in a short amount of time. Interviews. Some colleges offer interviews, some don't. Some colleges offer interviews only before you apply. Some colleges offer interviews only after you apply. Some schools have evaluative interviews, meaning that they write up a report about what the conversation was about and put it into your application. Other schools offer just informational interviews, meaning that you can meet with somebody and ask any questions that you have, but they don't take any notes and they don't make a note of it in your file. So interviews oftentimes don't start until about April or May of junior year, and then go up until the application deadline, as I said, unless it happens to be a school that only offers interviews after somebody's been admitted. There's different rules at different schools. It's worth looking into. Generally, any school that offers an interview, it's worth taking advantage of. It gives you an opportunity to become more than just an application file, more than just some pieces of paper, but to actually become a three-dimensional person. And it also gives you a chance one-on-one to have your questions answered, which can really help you in your college search. And then finally, oftentimes schools will offer the opportunity to have an overnight on campus. Those can be arranged by the admissions officer, by a coach if you're a recruited athlete, or you might arrange them on your own if you have a friend who goes to school there or you know someone who does. It gives you a great opportunity to really spend a lot of time on a college campus and see what it's all about. Some schools have stopped offering overnights because of liability concerns and other issues like that, but it is a great way to learn more about a school if it's something that's offered and something that you're comfortable with. Those are some of the standard things that people will consider when they visit a college, but there's other options too, and there's no rule about what you can or can't do when you visit a college. So there's a few things that I think can be really worthwhile. One is to attend a class. If there's a particular subject that you're really interested in, if you just want to see what the academic life is like, go ahead and attend a class. Oftentimes an admissions office will put that together for you. They'll have a list of classes that are approved for observation, meaning that the professor has given advance approval saying it's okay. Sometimes you can arrange that just through a friend. But attending a class is a great way to really see what the academic life is like. Remember that when you attend that class, it's just one class. So if you feel that that professor happens to be a little dry, or that that topic was a little boring, or it was a little too easy or a little too hard, don't judge all the academics based on that one class, but it does give you a chance to see what the class interaction is like, how the professor interacts with their students, how the students talk both before and after the class as you're walking in and out. You can learn a lot about how students perceive the academics at their institution. Another option is to meet with a professor or a coach or a club advisor. If there's a particular field of interest to you, this is a great time to find people on campus who share those interests and ask if you can learn more about them. This is not a smart thing to do if you don't have a particular field of interest. It doesn't help your chances for admission to find a professor in the psychology department and ask them some questions about their department if it's not something that you're passionate about. But if you know that you really want to study theoretical physics and you don't want to study applied physics or engineering or what have you, you really want it to be very theoretical, then meet with a professor to talk about what slant and direction their department takes. There's no harm in asking for that. You may find that at some schools the professors are very hard to access, and at other schools they might be very easy to access. It's always worth asking and looking into. Eat lunch in the dining hall. This is where it's at. You're going to be eating this food for 4 years. And as you know, different schools have different reputations for having great food services and not so great food services. Most admissions offices, if you take a tour or do have an information session or do something officially through the admissions office, they will often give you some sort of a meal ticket or a free pass to the dining hall. It's a great way to see what the food is like, but also, again, to watch those students, pay attention to them. Eavesdrop on their conversations. Just listen to what they're talking about. Do they seem happy? Do they seem totally stressed out? What is it that's going on around them? What's important to you? Could you picture yourself hanging out with these people or not? Do they seem like they would be interesting to have conversations with? And walk up to them and ask them questions if you're comfortable with that. But eating in the dining hall is a good idea. Meet with students. Again, certainly I think using social media to see if any of your friends know students at the school who'd be willing to share their opinions. See if anyone from your high school is attending that school and might be willing to meet with you. Or just ask the admissions office if you can talk with students. But the challenge there is I would encourage you to meet with some students who don't work for the admissions office. Everybody who works there will be honest, but they choose to work there because they really like it there. So sometimes it's great to meet with some people who aren't working for the admissions office, whether it's a volunteer or paid position. It attracts certain students who have certain feelings. You want to be sure they're not the only ones who like the school. And then finally, one of the most underutilized resources, I think, on most college campuses is the Career Center. The Career Center is where it's at when you are a student at that school trying to figure out where you're going from there. So whether that's planning out internships and figuring out what you're going to major in, or whether it's applying to graduate school or applying for jobs or preparing for that, working on a resume or doing mock interviews or whatever it might be. The Career Center staff is usually very willing to share information about what they do, how they serve the population, what students do after they graduate. They're very happy to share that information, and almost no one asks them for it. So stop by the Career Center and ask some questions, or arrange a meeting in advance. It's a great way to learn more about a school. Okay, some tips for making your visits especially effective. If I could tell you to always visit on a bright, sunny, beautiful day when students are throwing frisbees around the quad and everybody's happy and having a great time and there's music blaring, that would be the first tip, but I don't suppose you have a lot of control over that. So some other things that you do have control over. One is to take photographs. It's easy to do nowadays, especially with all of our digital opportunities. Take photos. When you start, be sure that you take a picture of something that has the name of the school first, whether it's the sign as you're entering campus, whether it's just a piece of paper where you've scrawled University of X on it, whatever it is, take a picture of the name of the school first, especially if you are visiting 6 different colleges in a week. They will all blend together pretty easily, and on your camera, as you're looking at scrolling through those photos, it can often be very difficult to tell where one school ends and the next school begins. So take some photos, but start with a picture of the name of the school. Also, when you're taking those photos, don't just take pictures of buildings. You can pull up pictures of buildings online. That's not difficult to do. Instead, take photos that are going to help jog your memory as to what the experience was like. So take a picture that somehow includes the weather. If it's a gray, rainy day, make sure you get some of that in your photos. Take pictures of people who talk to you. So this is a great opportunity. I always tell parents, hang back a little bit from the tour and take a picture that includes everybody who's on the tour, but particularly the tour guide. If you can visualize the tour guide, you will better remember what it was that they told you. There's a connection there between what you see and what you remember. So if you can see the person who was talking to you, you'll remember more of what they said. If you can see the rest of the tour, you will remember more what that experience was like. And it might be something as ridiculous as, oh, I remember that woman in the purple jacket. She asked all those questions about blah, blah, blah. Whatever it is, it will really help you remember more vividly your experience if you take photos that make sense. Take notes. I always say, again, will seem very distinctive when you visit them, and then they will all blend together eventually. So write down what your impressions are. Another piece that I recommend there is if you're visiting with your family, each of you should take your notes before you start discussing the college with each other. Write down what you thought of the school, write down what stood out to you, write down the important facts that really stuck in your mind, and then discuss it. What often happens is that one person who feels really strongly about a school, either positively or negatively, can sometimes cause other members of the family to forget the things that stood out to them. A student who has a really negative reaction to a school might cause a parent to forget the enthusiasm that they felt about something, or vice versa. So I always recommend to families just, take 2 minutes and just jot down the first impressions that you had, the things that were most important before you start discussing it as a family or with your friends, because that will really help solidify your own impressions and memories. Spend time in the student center or dining hall. So, I mentioned certainly pay attention in the dining hall, not just to the food, but the people. Same thing in the student center. Watch them to see if they're happy, if they're friendly, if they're stressed out, what they're talking about. I think I'll jump ahead here. As you're in a student center or dining hall, there's bulletin boards everywhere all over college campuses. Look and see what's posted on them. See what's happening on campus this coming weekend, and sort of see, is there enough activity here? Are there things that I would want to participate in? What could I do if I were here for the weekend? I think that can really give you a sense of what students care about, what the issues are on campus. Pick up a campus newspaper or any other sort of literary magazine that you find there. Listen to the campus radio station as you're arriving on campus or leaving from campus. So paying attention to all the resources around you can be really important. In doing that, I jumped right over the visiting the surrounding town and city. This is a place where, as a student, if you're attending that college or university, you're basically becoming a resident of this town for 4 years, except for some vacations in the summer. So it's important that you get to know what's there. There may be things that are really important to you. Is it a safe area? Is it energetic? Is it quiet? Is it beautiful? Is it gritty? What do you like? What feels comfortable to you? Is it easy or difficult to get to? If you have a car, can you bring it? If you don't have a car, can you get around without one? Explore the surrounding area and see what it's like. That can make a huge difference in your college experience. And ask about that when you're on campus too. Ask about the involvement and the relationship between the college and the town. That can have a real big impact on your college experience. Jumping back down, wear appropriate clothing. So this sounds like a basic. You're going to be walking around a lot. If you're taking tours or you're just walking around on your own, make sure you've got comfortable clothes. But if you're taking tours and visiting an admissions office, you also want to be making a good impression. So make sure that you wear clothes that are appropriate. Avoid things like ripped jeans or old t-shirts or revealing clothes like tank tops or things that are cut a little bit too low or things that are a little bit too short. Avoid clothes that have inappropriate slogans or artwork on them. Avoid hats. Avoid chewing gum. Things like that. Some of them may be fine as you're walking around campus, but when you're in and out of the admissions office, make sure that you're dressed appropriately. You don't have to get decked out in a suit or some sort of a fancy dress in order to have a college interview. You can be comfortable, but you should be dressed nicer than you would be dressed if you went to school. You should be dressed for the most conservative admissions officer who might possibly interview you. So that's always really important to pay attention to. And then if you want to bring a change of clothes for the tour, or if you're going to be doing a lot of walking around, go ahead and do that. If you want to bring a pair of sneakers, great. So pay attention to just sort of both aspects, making sure that you are prepared to make a good impression in the admissions office, but also that you will be comfortable throughout the day. You don't want to be wearing uncomfortable shoes as you're walking around campus. You don't want to be the one who's holding up the tour because you can't catch up with everyone, whatever that might be appropriate. The other thing I would say about making a visit really effective that I think can be really essential is asking what I call the unanswered questions. So all of us, as we're researching colleges and learning more about them, you'll hear rumors about them. People will tell you about a school that's a real party school or a school that is super artsy and really uncomfortable for anybody who's not into the arts or whatever it might be. You'll hear all sorts of different rumors. Ask those questions when you're on campus. Ask students, ask admissions officers. You can't dispel those rumors if you don't ask about them. So give people a chance to address the concerns that you have. That's really important. Ask about the negatives too, and we'll talk about this more when we talk about what kinds of questions to ask. But if you think that every school has positives and every school has negatives, and they're all working on something, ask about what they're working on. Again, anybody in the admissions office will tell you the truth, but they may not volunteer that information if you don't ask about it. So go ahead and ask, what is the college trying to improve? What are you working on here? What's the 5-year plan? What's happening here? And I think it's a great opportunity for you to learn more about whether or not this school is a good fit for you. Don't just try to impress them. They also need to be giving you information that makes you want to apply. So be sure that you ask the unanswered questions. Okay. Travel planning. When you plan your college visits, first thing you want to do is prioritize the schools that are most important to you. So do some college research, decide what it is that you're interested in or what you're looking for or what will help you figure out what you're interested in or what you're looking for, and figure out which schools you want to go to first. Then plan your trips around those schools. So if you are heading out to upstate New York and you know that Syracuse is where you want to be, then okay, go and visit Syracuse, and then there are other schools you can see while you're out there, but prioritize your Syracuse visit. Schedule that tour, schedule that information session, and then add on Ithaca or Rochester or whatever other colleges you want to see. So make sure if you have a sense of priority, it will be much easier to plan your college tours and your other activities there. Be careful not to do too much in one day. it often seems like, oh, yeah, we could visit this school and then drive 2 or 3 hours and visit that school, and I bet we could still fit in a end of the day tour over here at this other school. There's only so much you can do during the course of a day, and you want each visit to be pretty thorough. So usually I would say 2 colleges in a day is more than enough. 1, if you want to go into a lot of depth. 2, if you want to be able to do about a half day at each place. Occasionally in an urban area you might be able to do 3, but it's pretty exhausting and it's pretty cramped, and you may not have time for things like lunch or other things. So don't try to do too much in one day. On that same note, don't make, especially if it's a week-long or a long college trip, don't make it all about college. Blend it with some other things that are fun. I had a student once who was a huge Red Sox fan, and any of you who happen to live in the Northeast may know that it's really difficult to get tickets to see the Red Sox play home games. And she planned every single one of her college tours around where the Red Sox were traveling. She knew that she wanted to visit schools in Philadelphia, so she planned it at a time when the Red Sox were playing in Philly or Baltimore or whatever else. So blend it with something else that's fun, a cultural event that you want to go to, or just take some time to see a movie or relax, or make sure that when you have dinner that night that you don't talk about college. Do something to mix it up a little bit and keep it from becoming a stressful experience. You want this to be fun. It should be enjoyable. Visiting schools is actually kind of a blast. It should be exciting. And sometimes it can be a little overwhelming if it's all college all the time. So make sure you mix it up a little bit with some things that are a little more fun. And then see if other nearby schools might be worth a quick visit if you have time. So again, we said plan the schools that are the priorities first. But then if you're driving right past a college and you've heard of it, or you think, oh, yeah, that's a place that sounds like that's on my list somewhere. Let's just do a drive-through. That's when you do that quick visit where you do park the car and you get out and you walk around a little bit. But even if you don't have the formal tour, it's still worth taking advantage of a close location. It might help you know whether or not it's worth the trip back to the area, or it might help you continue to evaluate different sizes of colleges, different types of campuses, different types of schools. Questions to ask. There's obviously no rule here, right? There's lots of things you can ask, and there's no rule about what you shouldn't ask, but I guess there's a couple things that I think are really important. This very first one, tell me about your blank program. Please don't ever ask a college if their whatever academic program, if their business program is good. I have never heard an admissions officer or a student say, no. So ask more of an open-ended question, or ask more specifics about it. Tell me about your business program. What kind of a slant do you have in your business program? Is there the opportunity to concentrate in different areas? I'm particularly interested in marketing. Can you tell me about the marketing opportunities here? Or whatever that may be. But don't just say, hey, is your business program good? Because the answer is always yes. And generally, yes or no questions don't end up telling you a lot about a school. Usually, yes or no questions you can look up online if you ask more about the open-ended and more about the kinds of things you can't learn on a website. So the next one, what do you like best about this school? It's only going to give you one person's impression if you ask one person, but it can be really interesting to hear how different people respond to what they think is the best. Gives them a chance to boast a little bit about their environment, to talk about what really stands out to them. And if you ask several people this question, it might be interesting to see if they all say the same thing, or do several of them say different things, and what really stands out to you in their responses. What do you think needs to be improved? So again, this is asking about the negative, asking about the things that might be concerning to you, but doing it in a gentle way so that it's not like you're digging for dirt on a college. What do you think needs to be improved gives either a tour guide or an admissions officer a chance to share some information about what is lacking at the school and what the school is doing about it. I think that can cover a broad range of things. It could be, what do you think needs to be improved in the student body? What do you think needs to be improved academically? What do you think needs to be improved related to the facilities? On that note, one thing to watch out for as you're visiting campuses is the impact of construction on a campus. Usually when you're touring a campus, it can be frustrating when there's construction going on, but construction is a really good sign on any college campus. A college that has the funding to build is a college that's financially secure. So think about that as you're visiting campuses and you see construction going on, even if it creates a hassle for you, and there may be some things that you can't see that you'd like to get into a certain building, or it just makes a hassle. You have to go way around the center of campus. It's usually a very good sign when a college is going through some sort of construction. What are the most popular social activities? This gives you a chance to find out what it is that's most common, what is everybody going to, which can tell you a little bit more about the personality and the flavor and the feel of a school. And then it gives you a chance to ask a follow-up question about other things that you're interested in. So if everyone is going to the a cappella concerts and the theater performances, well, is anybody going to the soccer games? Ask that question as a follow-up. Can you tell me about the athletic spirit at this school, if in fact that's important to you? Or vice versa, whatever the situation is. But asking about the most popular social activities can give you a real sense of what's happening and a little bit more about the student body, too. This next one is sort of a question that serves multiple purposes. So what makes a student a good fit for this college or university? This is a good way to, again, it's finding out more about the feel of the school, the personality, the kinds of students who decide to go there. Sometimes you get some really great responses to this. Sometimes they're not so terrific, but they just don't go into as much depth. But sometimes this can really elicit some great answers that teach you a lot about the school. The other thing that this question does is many colleges and universities on their applications will ask an additional essay question asking you about what it is about their school that that is a good fit for you. So they may say, why is it that we're a good academic and personal match for you and your goals? Or what is it about our the major that you've selected at our particular school that makes you a good fit? What are you excited about taking advantage of at our college or university? All of those questions are asking about why you are a good fit. So if you ask them about what makes a student a good fit, that helps you have an idea of what it is that stands out to them. And not that you should simply repeat that back to them in your application. You shouldn't. You should be honest and you should be personal. But it does give you a little bit of a tip or some hints of, okay, here are some values that or some qualities that we value. That might be a good way to think about it. As you know, if they talk about the enthusiasm for education, if they talk about blending of departments into the liberal arts or whatever it is, that may give you more information that might eventually help you with your applications as well. The next question, there's a lot of statistics out there and some of them are very misleading. A lot of schools will tell you what their average class size is. Or they will, my favorite is they'll tell you what the student to faculty ratio is. So the student to faculty ratio might be 15 to 1, which makes you think, great, my classes are all going to be classes of 15 students. Well, that's not the case. A student to faculty ratio of 15 to 1 means that there's, for every faculty member, there are 15 students. But there may be a lot of faculty members that don't actually teach classes. A lot of faculty members that spend a lot of time doing research and a lot of time doing a variety of other things, but not actually teaching any classes or only teaching one class or things like that that can really throw off those ratios. Same thing with average class sizes. When you ask about what the average class size is, they're going to give you an overall average class size, which includes all the independent studies that some upperclassmen are doing or the one-on-one research that they're doing may count as a class, and therefore that can skew your class size. So ask, hey, you know what, as a freshman, what size would my classes be here? What can I expect in my first year here at college in terms of class size? Are we talking about classes of 30 students, 75 students, 250 students? If that's important to you, you should ask about it and think about how that's going to impact you. If you're used to all of your high school teachers knowing who you are, knowing you by name, is it going to be difficult for you to introduce yourself to your professor or to potentially introduce yourself to your professor more than once, or simply to walk past them in the hallway and realize that they don't recognize you at all because it's such a large lecture? So that can be a good question if those kinds of ratios and size issues are important to you. The last two are questions about financial aid or merit scholarships. So if finances are important to you, if you plan to apply for need-based aid, it's important to ask about whether or not the school meets 100% of need. Most schools excuse me, have some kind of a limited budget for financial aid. There's only so much to go around. And one of the ways that some schools have taken care of that, if there's more demand than they can offer, is that they will only meet 75% of what it seems that your family might need. So if the formulas show that your family needs $40,000 in order to be able to afford their school, they may offer you $30,000, and you need to come up with the rest. So asking about that can be helpful just in getting an understanding of what their approach is to matching financial need. Also asking about merit scholarships, whether or not they offer them, what it takes to qualify, and how it is that students apply. Some schools, many schools, for academic merit scholarships, you may not have to do anything extra to apply. They automatically offer them to the top students in their applicant pool, and that's a great thing. It makes it nice and easy for you, and it's a nice way to have an opportunity to receive some kind of merit scholarship. Remember that to earn a merit scholarship at a college or university, you don't need to be at the top of your class at school. You need to be at the top of the applicant pool at the college or university. And that's a really important distinction. So even a student who's only an average student at their high school, or even a student who might not be that great a student at their high school, they may qualify for academic merit scholarships at a college or university where they're at the top of the applicant pool. So asking about whether or not they offer them and how it is that students apply for them can be a great way to learn more. And I think I'm going to end it there and give us a chance to fill in with some Q&A a little bit for the last 15 minutes.
Great, thanks, Meredith. So folks, if you have any questions, please fire them away. We have a couple in the queue right now. So the first one, Meredith, is asking about visiting the financial aid office or talking with anyone in financial aid. Is this something that's appropriate? Any tips on that? Can you complete the net price calculator and bring in a figure and ask them about that specifically?
Sure, that's a great question. Different schools will have different approaches to this, but most financial aid offices are very willing to work with families even before you've gone through the application process. So yes, I would complete the net price calculator online. I would even talk with the financial aid office in advance and see if you can schedule an appointment. So maybe you schedule an appointment before or after your tour or your interview. And that way you know somebody is ready to meet with you one-on-one. Some schools will even offer what they might have a form that you fill out that provides an early estimate of a financial aid package. If a school does that, it's a great way to get even more information than that net price calculator that will show far more details about your personal situation and how you might qualify for aid. So it's definitely worth asking.
Great, thank you. Is there a way to make a good impression or be noticed by the school, specifically asking or saying that the school is, my top choice, or I'm really interested in going to the school? How do you make them feel like you're really excited about going there? And additionally, who are the best people to really impress that fact upon?
Good. So first of all, the most important people to impress your level of interest on are the admissions people. The admissions officers are the people who read the applications. They're the ones who are determining what's important to them this year as they evaluate applications, and they're the ones who make the decisions. So they're the ones who are going to have some sort of an interest in what your level of interest is in the school. I certainly would recommend expressing your enthusiasm for a school if it's real. Do not feel that every place you go you need to tell them that it's a top choice, because they see through that. They can tell sincerity or not, and it's important that you come through as sincere and honest. It's perfectly fine to say, hey, I'm still learning about colleges, and this one is one that I'm excited to learn more about. You don't have to already come in showing that you know everything about them. It's okay to be honest about even something as simple as, hey, we were driving by and we thought we'd stop in, and this place is gorgeous and I want to learn more about whether or not it's a good fit for me. That's fine too. So don't feel that you have to tell them that every school is your first choice, because at some point you may have to make a decision about whether or not you're going to apply early decision, and if you've told them it's your first choice and you don't apply early decision, then they might question your sincerity. But certainly convey your enthusiasm. Do that in an interview. Do that by writing a thank you note. Get business cards from anybody you interact with on that campus. If you have an admissions officer who gives an information session, even though it's not one-on-one, they'll usually give you their card at the end of it. Write them a thank you note. Write them an email follow-up and ask them additional questions. By the end of my visit, I knew I was really interested. I did have one or two other questions. That's a great way to continue to show your interest and even to start a dialogue with someone.
Thanks. I have one more question here, and then looks like that's it. So if anyone has additional questions, please type them now. The next question is about athletic recruitment, so visiting with coaches on campus and what's appropriate, whether it's a club sport or Division I or Division III. How would you outline the best way to go about if you're interested in playing sports at the school? How do you go about reaching out to the school coach and learning more about that?
Sure, and different schools and different divisions will have different policies and rules that they have to follow. So especially Division I and Division II colleges have very clear-cut rules that they have to follow, and they don't have much flexibility or choice in that. Division III has more flexibility, and if you're talking about a club sport, there's no rules about that. So it really varies from school to school and from division to division. If you're interested in playing a sport on a college campus, that definitely should be part of your visit, is to learn more about it. If you can, just like I mentioned about financial aid, if you can, I would schedule that in advance so that you are assured the opportunity to meet with someone, especially if you're talking about a coach in an intercollegiate fashion where you really want to take time out of their day and talk with them for a little while. You should contact that athletic department and let them know, hey, I'm a prospective student, I'm planning to visit, I'd really like to learn more about the field hockey program. Would there be an opportunity for me to meet with somebody about that while I'm there? Depending on the division and the rules and regulations and the availability of the coach, they may or may not meet with you. It doesn't necessarily mean that they are or aren't interested in you, whether they meet with you or not. Some coaches really make themselves available and meet with everyone who comes through their doors. Some don't meet with anyone. You might meet with an assistant coach, or you might meet with a student who's involved in the program. But any way that you can gather more information is worthwhile. Along that line, if you are interested in playing a sport in college, make sure that you go onto that college website and fill out the athletic recruitment form. It's the best way and the easiest way to put yourself on their radar screen so that basically college coaches spend a lot of time doing research into players and trying to decide who they're interested in recruiting. If you can put yourself on their radar screen, then they'll start to research you. You should also reach out to them when you visit, but it's a good way to get the ball rolling.
Thanks. Any tips for parents on how they should behave during the tour versus how their students should behave? How they should differentiate themselves?
Sure, that's a good question, and a lot of my answer may vary depending on family dynamic. I think that parents, it's fair game to ask questions on the tour, and students, it's fair game for your parents to ask questions on the tour. So let them do that, and sometimes parents will ask questions that are really educated questions that really elicit a lot of great information. Sometimes students can be really embarrassed by the questions that their parents asked. And I guess my biggest advice would be to talk about it as a family before you visit the campus. If you are a parent who knows that you're going to have a lot of questions, let your student know that and say, right from the start, I'm going to apologize if this embarrasses you, but I have a lot of questions, and this is really important to me that I ask them and we hear the answers to these questions. Is that okay with you? I have seen tours where students and parents won't walk together and won't necessarily let people know that they're related as they're walking around on that campus. That's fine. Whatever works for you as a family and allows you to keep some peace while still gathering the information that you need. You don't want to just stay silent if you have a lot of questions, because this is the best opportunity to get them answered. So I think working on some kind of a dynamic there that allows you to all get your questions answered, but also to feel comfortable traveling together at the same time.
Great. Well, thank you, Meredith, and thanks everyone for attending. I hope you found that helpful. We will send out a recording of this webinar, a video recording for you to share with colleagues and students, and also we will also send out some information on Campus Bound as well. If you have any questions about campus visits or anything from Meredith or Campus Bound, you can reach out to her. If you have any questions about Zinch or any of our future webinars, just let me know. And thanks for your time. Meredith, any final words?
No, just good luck to all of you. It should be an exciting and fun process. And please don't hesitate to reach out to me if you have any questions at all. Thanks for coming.
Great. Thanks, everyone. Have a good night.